All right, welcome. Today we're going to move way beyond just the basics. We're aiming for mastery of two of the most powerful tools in any product designer's toolkit: color and typography. And let's be clear, this isn't about just making things look pretty. It's about solving real user problems, cutting down on friction, and building trust. These are the absolute pillars that hold up intuitive, accessible, and ultimately successful digital products.
I love this quote from Robert Bringhurst because it just nails it. In our world, in product design, that clothing worn by ideas is our interface. Think about it. A banking app needs to feel trustworthy and crystal clear, while a social media app, it might want to feel more expressive and fast. Our job is to pick the right fabric and cut, the fonts, the colors, to make sure the user's interaction with all that information is totally seamless and effective. So, here's our game plan for this session. We're going to start with the big why, the invisible architecture that underpins all great design. Then, we'll get super practical with the how of typography and responsive grids. After that, we'll learn how to scale all our work using design tokens and systems. And finally, we'll peek into the future, which is already here, really, and see how AI is becoming our new co-pilot in this whole process. First up, design's invisible architecture. You know how the best digital products you use every day just feel right? They don't seem random or chaotic? Well, that's because they're built on an invisible structure of principles that have been refined over centuries. This is our foundation. Okay, this slide right here gets to the absolute heart of why design matters from a human-centered perspective. Our main goal is to minimize what's called cognitive load, which is really just a fancy term for the amount of mental energy you have to spend to figure out an interface. Think about a cluttered, confusing checkout page versus one that's clean and simple. The difference is cognitive load. Literally every single choice we make should be about making the user's path to their goal as easy and frictionless as possible.
So let's talk about our first and honestly most powerful tool for creating that clarity: typography. This is how we take the user by the hand and guide them through the information, telling them, hey, look here first. This is important. This is secondary, and you can click on this. And this, right here, is where we separate amateur from professional design. Instead of just picking font sizes that kind of feel right, we use a typographic scale. It's like a musical scale, but for text. We start with a base size, say 16 pixels for our body text, and then we apply a consistent mathematical ratio, like 1.25, to create a whole set of related sizes. This creates a visual rhythm, a harmony that users can feel even if they can't explain why. It builds this subconscious trust and just makes the whole interface feel polished and predictable. And here is the result of that scale. This clear hierarchy lets a user scan the page in just a few seconds and totally understand its structure. They're not reading every single word, they're pattern matching. And in a world of information overload, making your content instantly scannable is a massive, massive win for the user. I mean, this slide says it all, right? It's proof. On the left, you've got what we call a wall of text. It's intimidating, it creates a super high cognitive load, and users will probably just give up. But on the right, with the exact same content, just a few simple typographic tweaks for hierarchy completely transforms it. It becomes approachable, easy to digest. This isn't just a cosmetic change, it's a fundamental upgrade to the entire user experience. Now, it's not just about size, it's also about shape. The width of your text block, what we call the measure, is absolutely critical for readability. If it's too wide, the user's eye struggles to find the beginning of the next line. If it's too narrow, the constant jumping back and forth breaks up their reading flow. That 45 to 75 character sweet spot is a time-tested guideline that just creates a comfortable reading rhythm. And you have to think about this constantly when designing for different screens, from a wide desktop monitor to a skinny little phone. Okay, so we've got our typographic building blocks. Now we need to arrange them in some kind of coherent structure. This is where grids come in. They are the invisible scaffolding that brings order and predictability to all of our layouts. Grids are one of the oldest principles in design, and for a really good reason. They create order. From the faint hand-drawn lines in medieval manuscripts to the columns in your favorite news app, grids help us navigate complex information. The principles that were formalized by the Swiss designers back in the 50s are the direct ancestors of the responsive layout systems we use in tools like Figma today. The tools have changed, for sure, but our human need for structure, that hasn't changed one bit. In a tool like Figma, we have a couple of main ways to use grids. Think of layout guides as the big picture, the macro-level structure for your whole screen, kind of like the columns on a magazine page. Then,
Inside those columns, we use auto layout for the micro-level structure of our components. This combo lets us build interfaces that are perfectly aligned at a high level, but also super flexible down at the component level.
And this is a perfect example of why auto layout is so amazing. When we build components this way, we're designing for the content, not just for a fixed box size. This is so crucial for building products that might get translated into other languages, where a simple word like save could become a much longer phrase. It just makes our designs more robust, more scalable, and a heck of a lot easier to maintain. Okay, so how do we manage all of this stuff, our colors, our spacing, our entire typographic scale, across a huge project with maybe hundreds of screens? This is the moment where we level up from making one-off designs to building true design systems. And those systems are powered by variables. Variables, or what we often call design tokens, are the single source of truth for all of our design decisions. So instead of typing a hex code like hashtag 007AF in 100 different places, we create a variable called, say, color-primary-blue. Now, if the brand's main blue ever changes, we just update it in that one spot, and that change ripples across the entire project instantly. This is how you build products that can actually scale and be maintained without losing your mind. And the workflow for using these variables is super systematic. You start by defining your primitive values. These are just the raw numbers and hex codes. Then you give those primitives meaning by creating modes for different situations, like desktop and mobile, or even dark mode and light mode. And finally, you apply these meaningful variables to your components. It's this separation of raw values from their actual application that makes a system truly flexible. And this is where the magic of that system really comes to life. See, we're not creating two totally separate designs. We're building one smart design that can adapt itself to different contexts. Just by flipping a single switch, the mode, we can see exactly how our design reflows for a different screen size. This speeds up our workflow like you wouldn't believe, and guarantees consistency everywhere. This is the power of thinking in systems. Okay, let's jump to our final section and see how all of this is getting supercharged. Artificial intelligence is fundamentally changing the speed at which we can build these sophisticated systematic layouts. It's happening fast. The design process itself is being completely transformed by AI. Instead of spending days or even weeks cranking out low-fidelity wireframes, we can now use tools like Rulume AI to generate an entire responsive site structure from a simple text prompt. The AI handles all the initial scaffolding, which frees us up to focus on the much more strategic parts of the job, like applying our unique brand identity and really fine-tuning the user experience. And I want to be clear, this isn't some far-off futuristic concept. This is happening right now. Over 250,000 websites have already been built using this exact AI-assisted workflow. It is dramatically compressing the time it takes to get from an initial idea to a fully working structure. And the acceleration doesn't even stop at wireframing. The line between a static design file and a functional working product is just dissolving. AI tools are popping up that can literally interpret our designs and generate working code, turning our Figma files into interactive prototypes or even live web apps. This is fundamentally changing the whole relationship between designers and developers. Which, of course, brings us to the most important question of all. As AI starts to automate the more repetitive, foundational parts of our job, what's left for us to do? Well, our role becomes more strategic. We become the orchestrators of these complex systems, the guardians of the user experience, and the strategists who make sure that what we're building isn't just functional, but truly valuable and deeply usable. The future of design is less about pushing pixels on individual screens and more about crafting intelligent, human-centered systems.